Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations in Horror, the podcast. I am your host, Kevin L. Powers. I'm also the owner operator of Something Wicked Entertainment and Events. And welcome to our podcast, this glorious whatever Monday or Wednesday this is today, in which we are discussing a new film for you. We're doing a lot of the special episodes this month because we are celebrating the amazingness that is horror superhero films. Now, I know that's something that a lot of you don't hear that often. Horror, superhero, or comic book based films. It sounds like an oxymoron, I know. But because a lot of you out there don't know that these films exist, we are dedicating a month of screening, showing you some of these films. Not screening and showing them, but actually just talking about them. One of the films we're doing today, or the film we are doing today, is one that is very famous. Actually, this is a very well liked film because it is one of Guillermo del Toro's most, I guess, well liked films, actually. And it happens to be about Hellboy. Now, if you haven't heard about Hellboy, we're going to talk a lot tonight about Hellboy. And to talk about Hellboy, I have my amazing Sarah Panazzo and Philip Ray as my special guests. If you're wondering why I'm acting a little weird today, it's just because we're going to have a lot of fun with this movie today. We don't always have a lot of fun when we talk about horror films. No, we actually do have a lot of fun. So thank you, Sarah and Philip, for joining me on this great conversation that we're about to have.
No, thank you, Hellboy.
Thank you, Hellboy.
Hellboy.
It's great. We love to have fun here, and we hope that you listeners out there are having fun with the show as well. Because if you're not having fun and we're not having fun, then why the hell are we doing this? So let's talk a little bit about this movie. Not only about the movie itself, but also the fact that the director Guillermo del Toro proved that he could do just about anything he wanted to after this movie was released and amazed audiences for the best. So I saw this movie when it originally came out, but I would really like to know you two's background with this movie. So who wants to go, Philip or Sarah? Sarah first.
Sarah.
Okay, fine. So I was not familiar with the graphic novels when this first came out because I was like 10 years old. But I'm pretty sure this is one that one of my friends got me to watch or something like that, not immediately after it hit VHS and DVD, but sometime soon after that. Um, but yeah, I remember seeing it the first time and I was completely blown away at how awesome it was. Because I mean, like, how many fighting demon movies do you see back in the 2000s? Like nowadays we have them everywhere, but having a superhero kind of guy who like fights demons was not really popular back then. The fact that his name was Hellboy was not happy with a lot of people, so I don't even think my mom knew I watched this because it was too satanic. But no, I remember seeing this and loving it the first time, and I've loved watching the rest of them. I'm really sad Guillermo del Toro did not ever finish the trilogy he intended to, but I do love the original comic and graphic novel series because it is just so vast.
So before we get to you, Philip, I do want to say that this is a extremely long-running comic book series world that creator Mike Mignola, I think I've pronounced it. I don't think I've ever said his name out loud, to be honest with you.
Mignola? Yeah.
He has spent his entire career expanding the Hellboy universe. It's so immensely long and popular that I read probably up until maybe 4 years ago every title associated with Hellboy. So I have a very big, expansive knowledge of the whole universe. But Philip, where did you come into play with this?
So similar background like Sarah. I didn't see it when it came out in theaters. I was a little too young, but I think I ended up seeing it on TV. And I remember just falling, like thinking just the concept was so cool. Again, the makeup on Hellboy was done so well, and even the other League members were also were just so cool and was so interesting. And like it's funny because this was my introduction to Ron Perlman. It wasn't until later I started to like Ron when I saw Ron Perlman, I was like, he's so cool because I hadn't really connected him to his previous works beforehand. And I was like, I just love his voice. I just love everything about him. And I didn't realize until a little later that like Ron Perlman was already a part of my childhood playing Slade for Teen Titans
Yes.
and all of that. But so this movie was really my introduction to Ron Perlman as an actor and stuff. And then yeah, I watched the sequel and I watched the one reboot and stuff. But I have not gotten a chance to read all the Hellboy comics, but everything I saw from Hellboy, I was meaning like I love his design. This is a cool character.
So I'm gonna date myself extremely old now because I have known about Ron Perlman since he starred in the show Beauty and the Beast in the 80s. Okay, and that was only 3 seasons, but him in makeup, I knew his voice when I saw Beauty and the Beast. I don't know if either one of you have ever seen that show.
I saw a few episodes at one time. I think my mom thought it was something else and put it on, and then realized that was not the right Beauty and the Beast.
No, this is a really old show, and it probably
Yes.
introduced a lot of us older people to Ron Perlman because he had this voice in this character, and one of his first roles where he was in makeup, a lot of makeup, and which is what he got known for a very long time, and hence why he's so familiar in makeup in Hellboy. But I had always known who he is because I love that show. That's part of the reason why I wanted to see the movie because of Ron Perlman, but also because it's a Guillermo del Toro movie, who I've been watching his films since he did Kronos, which I can't remember how the years between Kronos, which also had Ron Perlman. And
It was about 12 years. It was 92.
so 92, I saw Kronos because I read about it in Fangoria, and I immediately loved everything Guillermo del Toro did. Followed his entire career. I've seen like almost every one of his films at the theater except for like 2, which is his sense of story. And this is why I love Hellboy so much. And even though the Hellboy movie differs from the comic book, it gets what the comic book's trying to do right, which is the whole epic fantasy and ideal of this. And he's not a superhero. He's a paranormal investigator who just happens to get his ass kicked a lot by monsters.
He's an anti-hero.
Snake Plissken is an anti-hero. He doesn't want to do anything he's forced to do. I think Hellboy just does it because it's fun and it lets him do a lot of things that he probably wouldn't do otherwise. That's how I've always seen Hellboy, and that's especially how he is in the comic book. He's a no-nonsense character who doesn't always want to do the right thing, but he always does it anyways, unless, of course, he's drunk. But there's a lot of great things that Guillermo del Toro adds to this character that's not in the comic book that humanizes him. And I think that was the problem with the early comic book. He's just a character. Whereas Ron Perlman and Guillermo del Toro created an actual real person behind the Hellboy makeup. And I think that's what Guillermo del Toro's 2 movies get right, that the other movies get wrong. So I love this movie when I first saw it. I liked the second one more until I rewatched the film. I really liked the second one because I thought the second one got everything better. Guillermo del Toro had a bigger budget. He was able to do a more fantasy-oriented film, which is what the Hellboy comics eventually would become. But this first movie, because it focuses so much on the Hellboy and the different facets of who he is, I think that's what works the best in this first movie. I think the second movie just allows a lot of the sub-characters, like you mentioned, Abe Sapien and Liz. Can't even think of Liz's last name. Liz Sherman's character that come out more in the second movie, whereas this first movie really is a Hellboy movie. With the John character who just happens to be a random Bureau for Paranormal Research, and I can't remember it all of a sudden. I want to say development, but I don't think development's right.
No, it's It might be actually.
Bureau for Paranormal
And
Research and Defense.
Defense, yes. Yeah, it didn't sound right. The development, defense.
and distribution, because they distribute monsters everywhere.
The thing is that this film, in my opinion, because it humanizes the Hellboy character, it reaches general audiences. We all know that back then when this came out, I think Philip and I had this conversation earlier about comic book movies. Is that everyone was throwing everything they could find from a comic book. We didn't have the Marvel Cinematic Universe or the DC Extended Universe yet, so everybody was trying to find what was going to be the next big comic book movie without it being a whole universe, because no one had been thinking about that. And I think this one it did well at the box office, but it wasn't like a huge box office smash.
Well, and it works because it's not just a comic book movie. It's a great monster movie. It's a great monster fighting monster movies. I mean, you've got the whole different mixes of lore and mythology, whether it's like the whole what did I put? Like the Nazi occult, Rasputin demonology, the Cthulhu mythology. I mean, it all ties in really well with this. And the prosthetics, the makeup, the CGI, like most of it is still really held up really well today as well. There's a couple parts where the CGI is a little clunky, but other than that, it's a fun watch. It's really entertaining. The cast is great. It's shot really well. I mean, Guillermo del Toro, I would hate to say well, I would hate to say if he ever did make a bad movie, but he has not made a bad movie in my opinion. I've loved just about everything he's done.
Even the one movie he thinks is bad is not bad, and that would be Mimic.
Yeah.
His first studio movie that he doesn't want to talk about.
See, it's funny because this movie, when it came out, it is very similar in a lot of ways to another movie that came out the year before that was also based on a comic book that was a financial success, but also was a critical, like, it was panned overall, is The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
They're both very similar, yes.
They're both very, very similar, but everyone looks at Hellboy so more fondly than The League, and I think a lot of that has to do with everything you say of, again, Ron Perlman was a perfect casting for Hellboy. Again, the makeup was done so well, and it was such a good choice to just to do practical on that versus trying to do CGI at the time. And again, it's because he really settles the movie down. And again, by focusing on him as the main person, and then you have this little back and forth on who was his dad, and this is something that Toro said. His theme was about two dads trying to take control of their son, with it being between Rasputin and I think that's why the movie is so relatable and so well liked, is because there's a lot of good emotional, like, a lot of emotional depth with that. And then again, and everything, and still has the cool factor as well. I mean, again, the movie starts out and you've got all the Nazis, and you've got the side, I forgot what the henchman's called, that has the sights and stuff that looks
Cronin.
so cool. Cronin. Like, again, there's a lot of cool factors and stuff already that's like for young boys, like, oh, this is cool. But then again, it does but League of Extraordinary Gentlemen had stuff like that too, but it made sure to also make you care about the characters, and you care about Hellboy. I mean, and again, you have the John character who's our John Doe character for us to know what's going on and not feel overwhelmed.
Well, John's character is the us character. He's the one integrating into Hellboy's world for the very first time, so that when stuff gets explained to him, it's getting explained to us, the audience. But he's also the person who, like Professor Bloom says, is he's got a pure heart and is supposed to teach Hellboy how to be more or less a man, or that's his hope. But that's coming from Professor Broom, his father / his conscience. of the good little demon on his shoulder, where if Hellboy doesn't really pay any attention to him and he's always breaking the rules, which I absolutely love because that's exactly how he is in the comic book. He breaks the rules all the time. He doesn't go by Professor Broom's rules ever, which gets him into trouble.
And I love that aspect of the movie where he's like hiding the cigar and he's like, "Oh, Dad, you're home." And they were like, "Yeah, he's like 60 years old." But really that's like he just turned 20 in his genealogy. And it's like
demon years.
I don't know any 20-year-olds who look like
Rob Perlman.
But no, it's such a fun movie. There's a lot of dry humor that breaks it up between all the action shots and everything. It's just so much fun. Like I said, the prosthetics and everything are just so well done.
Abe Sapien's another character that, again, prosthetic-wise,
Yes.
looks so good the entire time. You do not question any of it, and I think that's why it's so good because again, using the League as an example, everyone remembers how bad the CGI is for all the characters because they rely too much on the CGI for those characters, so it just looks terrible.
Oh my god! Besides that movie looking terrible, despite the fact that I love the director who hasn't been able to direct another film since that disaster, you're right. These movies, I think everyone had League as being the clear great movie of the summer or whenever it was coming out because it had Sean Connery in it as one of his last movies before he retired, which is a good thing because he was the worst thing in that movie. There's a lot of bad things about that movie, but he's the worst thing in that movie.
I don't know what you're talking about. He was the best part of that movie.
But with Hellboy, you had a cast of great actors like Selma Blair. I mean, she was like not the person you would expect to be in.
No.
And it was one of those things where I love, or Jeffrey Tambor, who was. I forgot he was in the movie until I rewatched it. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot he's in this movie, and he's funny in this movie.
Oh, I know.
It's one of those things where the humor is what humanizes him because in the comic book, the humor doesn't always come out because it's a comic book and you're trying to get through all the action and monsters and stuff like that. So the scenes like Hellboy at the top of the rooftop with the little kid and him getting mad with John because John's moving in on his territory, or what he thinks John is moving on his territory, is freaking hilarious because Hellboy's jealous. Now that's not something you see in the comic book that often, if ever, and that's also because there's no Liz and Hellboy relationship in the comic book like there is in the movie. That's something I think actually improves the movie, is that aspect there. But those scenes, those would be things that would either get cut out automatically, or they would think that those are not important scenes, but they are because they humanize.
They really do, and he's not just a monster anymore. He's an actual person that has feelings and emotions, like with all the cats. And it makes you care for him as a person, and that he's not just some endless fighting machine.
Which is what he gets picked on in a lot of the comic books. But that's one of the best things that Guillermo del Toro did with both of his films. He made Hellboy a more humanistic character than was expected.
Any other an easy way for this movie to have been done worse if they had made like John Myers the protagonist. If they made, instead of him just being the view, there's so many times you see a story like this where they go, oh well, we can't have the demon monster be the main character. Let's have this human character be the main character that follows this. And Del Toro was like, no, Hellboy is the main character. The movie is about him. will make him the human character.
Well, and that's what I love about Guillermo del Toro in general is he does a lot of monster movies, but he humanizes those monsters so well.
Mm-hmm.
And he humanizes horrific events so that you can see both sides of why things are done the way that they are, like Nightmare Alley, Crimson Peak. I mean, you see these human monsters too that like you somewhat feel for them because of the situations they're in. But then like this, where you this Shape of Water, um, they're just phenomenal, beautiful stories.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that just he always has this like Beauty and the Beast-esque thing going on, except it's always like a legitimate monster.
Well, in the crazy thing about this film, and that's not in the other films. So the reason why we're talking about this film, other than the fact it's called Hellboy, and Hellboy is literally a monster from hell, and you have this just the Cthulhu mythology and demonology. Okay, so there's a lot of reasons why we're talking about this in our podcast, but this is actually a really considering the second movie, this is a much more violent movie because it hinders on the fact that they're Nazis. And this is all based around, Hitler's other means of trying to win the war. Rasputin, who's almost ageless and immortal, and the fact that they're carrying around all this Nazi gold to pay for everything, people die in this movie.
Yeah.
A lot of people die in this movie, and it's not the same for the other movies. And you feel Hellboy feels when his partners die, and which is not something you would be expecting. And Guillermo del Toro doesn't do that much in the second movie because that was more fantasy based, which I think is where it needs to go anyways.
Also, so with Broom's death, which is the big heart of the movie, Del Toro actually, because in the comics, apparently Broom dies pretty early on in the comics. Del Toro said that he wanted to he delayed that for so much of the movie because he wanted Broom to be a more established character, so that when his death happened, you felt more for it versus just kill him off as early as apparently in the comics he's killed off.
Yeah, they do, but in the comic books, since they play around with different time periods all the time, he's in so many fucking comic books, it's ridiculous, which is so funny. That's why I said they've expanded the universe of Hellboy. And if anyone was really smart, instead of making fucking more movies like they just did with the recent Hellboy movie, create a whole universe based around it because the
is it BRPD or BPRD?
Yeah, that had its own other
BPRD.
The BPRD had its own comic book that lasted without Hellboy even being in it for years. Abe Sapien had his own series for years. You had this rich world, and you got a hint of that rich world in the second movie because Guillermo del Toro was able to expand upon just the seed of what happened in this first movie. This first movie is a great introductory film to the Hellboy character. If you've never read a comic book, if you know nothing about Hellboy, this is a great intro movie for that, and which is rarely done. There's not many great first films for characters that people just don't know anything about. In my opinion.
And I mean, for this being like one of his, I won't say it's his earliest work because it's not, but like one of his earlier works before he really exploded, like it was 2 years later, he was nominated for Oscars for Pan's Labyrinth. I mean, like he knows how to write, he knows how to develop characters in general. I mean, like Pacific Rim, it's not a movie I expected I would actually like, but he makes you care about these people and these characters. The Strain book series, I loved reading them, and then when he jumped on the TV show with it too, I was right on board with it because he knows how to develop his visions, which is really, really handy.
He's at a great place now where he can pretty much do whatever he wants to do, and people will let him because they trust him. Though he's not as profitable as say James Cameron, who can do anything he wants, whatever he wants, whenever he wants. But Guillermo del Toro can pretty much do whatever he wants without much studio interference, which is great now because we're getting some great films from him.
Yeah, and I mean, he knows how to cross genres, whether it's the whole Troll Hunter series that he helped establish or any of the other, like, um, I don't want to say smaller projects, but more like family-friendly projects like The Witches or Pinocchio. But then he's get these giant, massive movies like Crimson Peak or Shape of Water or Nightmare Alley. I mean, him finally getting the Cabinet of Curiosities was one of
Oh
my
yeah.
favorite things because it's a newer version of the Twilight Zone. You get this artist who loves creating stories, sharing some of his favorite stories, essentially.
Mhm.
And a lot of those artists become new up and comers, and he's really good at finding those types of people.
Mhm. Well, I thank God that Ron Perlman has stuck with him too. Spick and Span
Yes.
this is the
Yes.
very beginning with Kronos. I remember seeing him in that and saying, "Wait a minute, what is he doing in this foreign film? What the hell?"
I gotta say, I'm just glad that he is not Frankenstein's monster in his new Frankenstein movie.
I think Ron Perlman's getting a little old to be playing that monster too.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I love Ron Perlman, but we need to give him another show where he can show off his real chops because that dude,
Yes.
yeah, that dude does not get enough credit, mostly because he's always under makeup. Um, but yes, you did mention it is a shame that Guillermo del Toro did not get the chance to do a third Hellboy movie, simply because the studios decided they wanted to reboot everything and go in a different direction. Um, because I think that this is one of the best adapted comic book films that doesn't necessarily follow everything in the comic book. That is very hard to say because so many people look down upon adaptations that don't follow comic books. But I think this one actually improved on Mignola's original comic book by giving Hellboy enough humanity so that normal audiences who are not familiar with him can understand him. Now, I don't know, that's what I like to say about that. But we've gone through a lot of Hellboy without actually mentioning what actually happens in Hellboy.
So real quick, talking about that, going back earlier about how Hellboy 3 didn't happen is it's was unfortunate. One thing, and you'll when you find this out, you'll be upset, Kevin, because what you asked about was in plan. There was going to be an Ape Sapien movie. It was called Hellboy Silver Lance, and it was going to be Ape Sapien was the main character, and it was going to go inside with Hellboy 3. But then when they can Hellboy 3, they can Silver Lance. And apparently the idea behind the Silver Lance movie is that if that was successful, along with Hellboy 3, they were going to make a spin-off series about BPRD. And it was going to be a whole like TV series that was going to be exploring more of the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they'd never be able to do what the comic book did because essentially the world goes to hell. That was the greatest storyline ever. They lost, the good guys lost, the Earth with the hell in a handbasket, and everyone's fucked. I don't know if you ever read that part, got that far, Panazzo, or not.
I haven't. I've got it sitting there because Humble Bundle kept doing uh BRPD or BPRD and the Hellboy series as their bundles per month. So I have a stack of them that I still need to read.
Yeah, I was like, dude, they're never going to get this comic book up. I mean, this comic book made into series because the Earth goes to hell pretty much.
It would be so much fun though.
It would be because there's giant freaking monsters everywhere, and they're all the BPRD is like people are dying left and right, and they're trying to save what's left of humanity. It's like a post-apocalyptic fucking Walking Dead type of thing. I say, if Walking Dead had not been as
We
successful,
saw it a little bit with the reboot.
well, which one?
The one with with David Harper.
Oh, the regular Hellboy. Yeah, you know
We
what?
did see that a little bit at the end.
They that one was okay. They tried to shove too many stories into one movie
Picked up on that, didn't
almost.
you? If you're a Hellboy fan, the
Yeah.
comic book, you
Yeah.
can see, well, they stuck like 10 fucking different comics in this one.
Yeah, it was a lot. And like we were watching it, we were like, okay, this could be really good, but it was like any other thing where they rush so much, they're trying to put all of the source material in, and you're like, you could have just picked like a part of this and expanded.
I'm trying to remember the director of that. Wow.
Neil Marshall.
Neil,
Yes, that's
I
right.
love his movies.
I do. I do.
I thought that him rebooting it with David Harbour was going to be, oh shit, okay, this will going to be good. And then
Yeah.
I watched it and I was like, no one's gonna know what the hell's going on in this movie unless you've read the comic book.
Yeah.
And of course, the new movie is straight out one of the comic books being adapted, but it's a horror comic book. And I'm like, so you picked one of the more straightforward horror comic books instead of kind of picking out one of the ones that actually is what made Hellboy really popular all over. And so I haven't seen it yet.
I haven't either.
It's on my list, but it kind of came and went so fucking fast.
Well, it didn't even get a theatrical release. Like originally it was going to, and then it didn't, and it just went straight to VOD.
Oh shit! I thought I had like maybe a 1 week and then it got pulled or some shit like that.
That was originally the plan. It was going to have a limited release, and then they went, nope, we're not even going to do that. We just straight up went straight to VOD.
Oh, that sucks.
Interesting. I wonder why they did that because I do remember seeing a bunch of the trailers for it and everything, and then it was just here and gone.
Yeah, that's how I thought too. I didn't know it didn't actually go to theater. That was during my time and I wasn't paying as much attention for theatrical releases. So, but you know, we have Guillermo del Toro's first two movies, and this one did a lot of great things correct. For the longest time, I hated the fact that Hellboy used to just was fighting Samael like too many times.
Mhm.
But when I rewatched it, I kind of think, okay, it makes much more sense. And when Liz goes full on Firestarter,
Yes.
that's her great moment where she kills all of the fucking Samaels. But I do want to ask quickly, have you guys both seen the director's cut versus the theatrical cut?
I don't know. I don't know if I know the difference between the two.
No,
Same.
that's what I was going to ask you because that's what I rewatched was the director's cut because I forgot I had the director's cut. I don't remember what's the difference between the two.
From what I know, that there's a couple of like they've added like 20 more minutes of scenes, but I don't know what exactly the scenes were.
I definitely don't remember because I saw the theatrical cut only in the theater, and then I bought the director's cut, and that's the only thing I've seen the 4 or 5 other times I've seen the movie. I've seen the Golden Army more times than I've seen this one, only because I thought that was a better realized version of the comic book. That's what I loved about the comic book was the more fantasy aspects, and the second movie I thought always got the fantasy aspects correct.
Mm-hmm.
So I've seen that one more. I think I've seen that one maybe 10, maybe 12 times.
It's funny. I've actually seen this one more than I have seen the Golden Army.
Same.
I've only seen the David Harbour one once. I remember nothing about it other than when I saw it at the theater, and I was like, okay. At least it had Mia Jovovich in it.
Yeah, I think we only watched that one once when it hit streaming, and I don't think I've gone back to watch it after that.
I haven't either. Oh shit! And I have it somewhere. I was like, I gotta be in the mood. If we ever do a podcast episode on that one, I will probably watch it. But until then, I doubt I'm going to rewatch it. I'm going to probably watch the Golden Army in about a few days because I now want to see that one again.
Yes. Yeah, I might just have to watch all of them now just to fully compare.
That's not a bad idea. Maybe I should do that too. Oh my god. Well, I will say this though about the David Harbour one, since it uses different characters than this one did. Because if you follow the Hellboy universe, this one does a good job of just setting up 2 of the characters, but then of course we bring in some of the other characters in the Hellboy one, the first remake. with Daniel Day Kim's character and some of the other characters that come in. I thought was really well done. I just think the movie crammed too many fucking stories in the one movie.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping that the new version, is it called The Crooked Man?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Crooked Man. See, I've read that story because I've read all of them, but it's like one of the very first ones that came out. So it's been what 25, 30 fucking years. And I've never gone back to reread them because there's just so many comic books, so many volumes to sit. Maybe you can read them, Philip. We'll give them to you to read. You can tell me.
I can't. Yeah, unfortunately, like with The Crooked Man, I know it was not well received, even when it went on VOD.
Oh,
I think
really?
that's the reason why it went straight to VOD was because everyone said it did not look good. Like people who actually saw the movie, it was panned worse than the David Harper one. So I have a feeling that Hellboy's going to be dead for a while, which is unfortunate. I mean, even the looks. I mean, if you kind of compare the looks, honestly, I felt like it's got each rendition got worse. Ron Perlman really was the like when people talk about, oh, they can't imagine Iron Man without Robert Downey Jr. or they can't imagine uh Captain America without Chris Evans. It really is a point. You can't really see Hellboy without Ron Perlman. I mean, even like the adaptations we've seen of Hellboy in the wild, like again, they did it when he was even an appearance in Injustice. They got Ron Perlman to voice the character and stuff. So I felt like it's going to be really hard to see another good Hellboy adaptation because I think Del Toro and Ron Perlman just knocked it out of the park for their rendition that just no adaptation with new actors and new directors are able to pick up that same oomph that they did.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is Guillermo del Toro just needs to come out and do the third one with Ron Perlman, and that'll just right all the wrongs.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but Ron Perlman said he's getting too old to do that shit.
I know, but at this point, he can just voice over it and they can put anybody in the suit. Honestly, it's what they do nowadays, unfortunately.
Oh my
It's
God.
funny because he's uncredited, but Ape Sapien is
Yes.
it's done by two different actors.
Yeah.
The physical body is Doug Jones, but uncredited, the voice is David Hyde Pierce, which is funny because rewatching it, I rewatched it getting ready for this episode, and I was like, why do I recognize that voice? And then I looked
Same.
up and I was like, oh,
I don't think
oh.
I ever realized it was David Hyde Pierce until this watch through when I actually looked it up and I was like, that makes so much sense now.
Yeah,
And
he doesn't do the voice for him in the second movie though.
No.
no.
Yeah.
But yeah, and he goes uncredited. Like you never realize it because they don't credit him with that.
Yeah, he said he didn't want to because he didn't want to take anything away from what's his name's performance.
Doug Jones.
Doug Jones's performance. I love Doug Jones. He's fantastic too. He is perfectly creepy.
Mm-hmm.
He's perfect. Yeah, he's perfectly creepy in just about every Guillermo del Toro film he's in.
Hey, even in Hocus Pocus.
Oh yeah, that's right. He is in Hocus Pocus.
Yeah, he's Billy.
Hocus Pocus.
It's not my favorite movie, but I do love him in that.
Oh Jesus! All right, so I'm thinking of anything else. I want to talk more about Hellboy, but we covered so much already, and even delving into the other movies, which I wasn't expecting to do.
I do want to bring up the music in it. The composer is Marco Beltrami, who is like a huge composer. His stuff is wonderful. If you've seen almost any Wes Craven or God, just about any horror film, he has done it. I mean, he just puts out so much good stuff.
No, I'm glad you mentioned him because his theme song for Hellboy is fucking amazing.
Yeah, I started writing down the stuff that I recognized he did, and I had to stop writing because I realized I had written like over 50 different shows and movies. I was like, oh my God, I know all of his work. But this movie was shot for 130 days. They shot 6 days a week straight for 130 days, and every Sunday was reserved just for editing the material from that week.
Mm.
So they did everything without a second unit. It was only one unit. It took them 22 weeks to film this entire thing. So I really enjoyed that. I love the whole little background thing that both Mignola and Del Toro were huge fans of Harryhausen and his work in like stop motion, like old school stop motion with monster effects, and that's why a lot of this stuff looks really good because they did the same thing. I know they framed a lot of their fights based on his older fight scenes, which is really cool and it's really neat to go back and rewatch to kind of see similarities and where they got their influences from. Um, but I thought that was a really cool effects portion of the movie and
So,
why it still looks good to this day.
so yes, you brought up something that I almost forgot I wanted to mention, which are some of the fight sequences in this film, which look absolutely amazing. Because what you don't see in this film that you see a lot of in the more modern comic book movies is that Hellboy gets his ass kicked a lot in this movie. He did it in
Yes.
comic books, but the way that they are staged by Guillermo del Toro, this is this is where it feels like a comic book movie, is in the fight sequences, especially when he's fighting Samael. Hit the first fight where he ends up in the train tunnels. Um, in the fight where
They're like running through the city and everything too, and he's like being hit around the street, struggling to catch up. I mean, it's great to watch because you've always got to, the hero can't be invincible. They've got to be able to fall for them to rise back up.
well, he falls a lot.
Yeah, he does.
He gets his ass kicked, and even when he's on the train conductor's
Oh
knocking
my.
off the train.
Yeah, and then he hits
Yeah.
every single car.
Those scenes right there, those scenes like that are amazing, and some of that's in the comic book, but it's funny and it humanizes his character in this movie the way Guillermo del Toro has put them in there, because there are a lot of these scenes.
And I love it. I've heard of it because I don't own the director's cut extended DVD, but I guess there's like a commentary version where they literally have the lineups of the comic strips that inspired certain scenes that you can pause the movie and see.
That's probably on mine because mine's a 3 disc set, which I forgot I had. Until I pulled it out. I was like, oh, I have the director's cut, and it's 3 discs. And there's like different commentaries on each disc and a whole bunch of special features that I'm sure I watched like 2 decades ago whenever I bought it. But I haven't seen since, so I don't remember any of it. I was like, I need to go back and revisit this. Because I don't think there's a whole lot of that with some of Del Toro's other films. But no,
Not really.
I think my Golden Army one also is a multi-disc one too. Um, but I don't think any of my other Del Toro movies has all the extensive stuff back behind the scenes stuff like those two movies did.
Well,
So
like most of his other movies are like behind the scenes, it's just set decoration and everything else. This is like Pacific Rim, I would expect a full behind the scenes thing of special effects and practicals and stuff like that, because everything else is very grounded, I want to say, a little more humanistic, whereas this you've got these crazy monsters that are fighting. Like you know there's going to be some extensive CGI effects of some sorts.
yeah, I could see that. I mean, I still want to see. I would love to see some of the background stuff for Crimson Peak, which I
Oh
absolutely
yeah.
want. Um,
Gorgeous movie.
I
Absolutely adore it.
And the thing is, for those of you out there who don't know and aren't aware, Guillermo del Toro has put together some amazing art books and collections and all kinds of extra stuff for most all of his mainstream films. It's amazing some of the stuff that this guy has done. Like you were mentioning before, that he most of his Ray Harryhausen collection of stuff
Hmm.
can be seen in his books, because he's got one book. I can't remember the name of which one it is because I've got like 5 of them.
Yeah, he's got so many different like coffee table-esque books that are just wonderful. And just hearing him speak on other documentaries about other people and other older movies is so interesting to hear about how he was influenced.
Yeah, and that's the one great thing about that. You see when he speaks about his influences, you can see them in his films, which is why I'm thinking I need to go back and check the storyboard one because I don't recall that one. And it's probably on my 3 disc set. It's a lot of stuff in those 3 disc sets. I forgot I owned this thing. It's like going back and watching the Peter Jackson's King Kong extensive diary.
Yeah.
Uh,
I've seen it once because it's a lot of extra stuff. Amazing, but a lot. So, but yeah. I mean, he's one of I thank God that he is one of our great horror directors / fantasy directors out there who continues to work in this field, no matter what he does, whether it's Pinocchio, Pan's Labyrinth, Crimson Peak, which I think is the
Or just making a guest appearance on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
I heard about that. I was like, really? Oh my God.
It's some of the greatest clips I have ever seen, just knowing it's him playing some super angry, like, Irishman is so fucking funny.
Oh wow! See, I only know about that because I still on my watch list because I want to watch that show. I have not gotten around to it. I get intimidated when there's so many episodes.
Yeah, you can see they've done like a super cut on YouTube, but I am still waiting for him to release his version of At the Mountains of Madness.
Oh my God, his forever movie.
I know. I remember seeing the little clips like what, a year or two ago, and he's the only person I think who could make it at this point.
Is he? Is he trying to do a live action or animated?
No, it's animated, and they actually released a little bit of screen footage at one point of what his test footage was.
Well, we all know now that he's wanting to move his career into the animated field. Surprisingly, I just realized I still have not seen Pinocchio. It's sitting on my shelf. I have not watched it yet, which is really bad of me because I've seen all of his other works except for Pinocchio.
Pinocchio's great.
Huh?
Is that Pinocchio's great?
Yeah, everyone tells me it's great. I don't know why I have not seen it. So yeah, I need to get to watching that one. But I think he's one of our, like I said, quintessential horror directors who have moved into fantasy horror, kind of like Cronenberg, David Cronenberg. Since now we have 3 Cronenbergs out there doing. Yeah. David Cronenberg doesn't really does straightforward horror anymore either. He's I hate to say elevated horror because it's not really elevated. He just has his own definition of what horror is. And that's not the same definition that's for other people. That's how I see Del Toro. I mean, we put this in as our horror comic book movie. It has horror elements in it, but we always look at this and say, oh, it's more like a fantasy than anything. Which is where, we love to see our best Guillermo del Toro movies. So,
well, and it helps that he is such a huge fanboy. If anybody does look on YouTube, he has a couple of different walkthroughs of his home for different interviews, and he's just got stuff everywhere that makes you so jealous. But yeah, he's one of those awesome people who is very passionate about his projects and about film in general, and it really does show.
Yeah. But that being said, do we have any more to say about Hellboy between the 3 of us?
I've got a couple of fun trivia and all of that. So one fun thing was because the title Hellboy, there were certain theaters that were not comfortable advertising hell, specifically because the movie came out around April, so very close to Easter. So what some theaters did was they renamed Hellboy to Hello Boy, or the other title was Super Sapiens. To avoid be sacrilegious to be advertising a movie called Hellboy around the time of Easter.
To make it even worse, I believe Passion of the Christ came out at around the same time, so they were showing right next to each other, so that also was a huge conflict.
Yep. Some other potential things that this, again, talking about how good this movie is, showing examples how it could not have been good. Some of the ideas that Del Toro was approached with for this story was, one of the ideas was to make Hellboy the Hulk, basically, where he is a human that transforms into Hellboy when he was angry. And also another idea was that he was just a human that came from hell. Gladly, those were vetoed. Another fun thing was Mike Mulligan and Guillermo del Toro both revealed at the same time that they wanted Ron Perlman as the lead. So they both were on the same page, which was great. Another thing that they talked about doing was putting the Doom hand on the actor's left hand instead of the right hand, because they worried about whoever they cast was not going to be would have to use their not dominant hand. But Ron Perlman was left-handed, so they were able to keep the right hand of Doom because Ron Perlman was left-handed.
Yeah. If they had switched hands, that would be about as bad for the film as everyone claiming that it was really bad not having an English actor playing Constantine, but having Keanu Reeves play him. Like, before the movie came out, everyone criticized that. He's supposed to be British. What do you have this American guy playing the British character for?
Vin Diesel was also heavily pushed by the studio to be either Hellboy or to be Sapien. Obviously, neither one of those happened. And yeah, and during the time, if Del Toro was offered the script for Alien versus Predator and Harry Potter and Prisoner of Azkaban, and he
turned it down, yeah, because he thought that the first two Harry Potters were too like happy-go-lucky. He wanted it to be dark, which is eventually what number 3 ended up becoming, was super dark with Alfonso Cuarón. So,
yeah. Which, by the way, is the only one which was one of the only ones I actually liked. I know I'm not a Harry Potter fan, but
it's my favorite, and I was a huge Harry Potter fan growing up, so no judgment.
I liked it because it was a darker movie. I was like, they got a good director to do these. No bad things about Christopher Columbus. I just think he's too kitty happy.
The first 2 are Christmas movies. The third one's a Halloween movie.
I'll stick with Guillermo del Toro. He did a great job not accepting those 2 offers.
Yes.
I would have been interested in a Del Toro Alien versus Predator movie, to be honest, but I love Hellboy, so.
Oh, Jesus. Maybe one day when they finally decide to redo the Alien versus Predator again, like in probably a year from now.
No, we'll just get a short episode of Cabinet of Curiosities where he adapts it shortly. It's all going to be in claymation.
I wish. I don't think they're doing a second season of that.
I thought they were. I thought I saw that they had announced it.
Oh, if they do, it's like 4 years after the freaking first season.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus. Well, he should definitely do another series regardless.
Yes.
In addition to, I'm still waiting for the second film in the, what was it, the Dark Tales?
Yeah, that comes out later this year, I believe.
Scary Tales.
Tell in the Dark.
Yeah. So he produced that one, but he actually produced a really good movie.
He also wrote the original script for it, I believe, too.
See, I couldn't remember if he did or not. It's on my shelf. I like the movie. I haven't watched it more than the one time. It's not not a Hellboy. Like, I've seen Mimic way more times than I probably ever should have seen Mimic. And he hates Mimic. I've seen Mimic a lot because I like monster movies. And we will probably talk about that one in a future episode. Mm-hmm. But any final words about Hellboy?
Hellboy.
I mean, as we've seen with 2 separate reboot failures, I think Del Toro's version is going to be untouched in the end, and will be probably the best rendition we will see of the character, unless magically someone actually does a better job in 2 or 3 years. But I highly doubt that. I think Del Toro nailed the character, and no one else will be able to touch it.
If anything, I could see them doing the animated series of it now that violent animation is now a big thing.
They did 2 animated movies already, which were both
good.
And actually, that's a great idea. if Netflix or someone would do an anime version.
It would end up being Amazon most likely because they
Yeah.
did like Invincible and everything else, but who knows?
Netflix has done some great anime. Castlevania is still one of my favorites.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So with that, we're gonna rate the movie. We do our rating scale now from 1 to 5, 1 being poor, 5 being absolutely excellent. Where on the scale would this film be for you, Mr. Phillip?
For me, Hellboy is I would say it's a solid 4 out of 5 for me. Again, it was really good. Really good rendition of the character. It's a good, yeah.
All right, what about you, Panazzo?
I was going to say the same. I'd say a solid 4, otherwise a hard 666. But no, it's a great entrance to the lore of Hellboy. It's a fun movie to watch if you've never been into any of it. And it's just a great expansion on the universe. Like I said, the CGI, some of it, a tiny bit, is a little rough, but the rest of it is just purely beautiful because it's all practical effects. And who doesn't love that?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna go a little bit higher on you guys. I'm just gonna do a 4.5 because it would be a 5, but I give 5 to The Golden Army. I think that's a much better film only because it is, I think, pure Guillermo del Toro. I think this one, because it was the first one and Guillermo del Toro hadn't proven himself to the big studio guys with the big bucks yet. You see some of those things that might have been studio added, like the John character. You kind of like. You can feel like he didn't like putting the John character in there, so he got rid of him for the second movie. So I think the second movie is a much more realized Guillermo del Toro movie, whereas this one is one of the best introductions to a character that no one knows about. Like, I don't think it wouldn't. There's no one who did it again until Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, no one knew who the Guardians of the Galaxy of. That movie is a perfect example of how to introduce characters no one's ever heard of. Is that movie, and I think this one is one of those type is at the top like that movie there. That's what I'm saying about this movie. I'm actually glad that we've discussed this movie. We'll have to discuss the second one and maybe those remakes a little bit further down the line. But with that, I want to thank everyone listening to our episode on Hellboy here at Conversations in Horror, the podcast. I want to thank you, Panazzo and Phillip, for joining me for this conversation. And I hope that everyone out there has enjoyed us talking about this amazing film. We wish that you would go out there and check out some of our previous episodes. We've done lots of great episodes on a lot of great movies. Check out the other episodes we've had this month that are special for our comic book-based horror movies, because we've done a lot of them, and we hope that you will enjoy some of them, or maybe not. They're not all good, guys. With that, make sure to like, subscribe, follow, do that thing you do with your favorite podcasts out there. And don't forget to check out our sister podcast when it comes out, which is Conversations in 4Color, which delves deep into manga, comic books, and graphic novels. From all of us here at Something Wicked Entertainment, we wish you a pleasant day, and we will see you on the next episode. Have a good day. Conversations in Horror is a Broken Lighthouse Pictures production, written, produced, and directed by Kevin L. Powers, executive producer Kelly A. Inoka. All contents and material from this episode of Conversations in Horror is copyright 2025 Broken Lighthouse Pictures.